Hi, everyone. We'll give people a few minutes to pop into our Facebook Live presentation tonight. We're so glad to be back with you. Today is Tuesday, September 14th, and so that means it's our Personal Stories Day at Tosa Talks. And my name is Robin Luther. I'm from Tosa Together. And I'd like to welcome you all to Tosa Talks, Building a Diverse, Thriving Community. We're an ongoing Facebook Live series, proudly sponsored by our generous friends at Bostic. We're excited to be back after our summer break. We started at the end of August and are back again with 3 presentations in September. Tosa Talks features 3 monthly presentations designed to provide meaningful discussions around racial and social justice issues to support the work of building an inclusive, anti-racist community. As always, your comments and questions are more than welcome. Please use the Facebook comments section under the live stream to add your voice to the conversation. It is my big pleasure to introduce to you tonight's guest, Rhonda Hill, founder of a local organization called Race and Faith. Hi, Rhonda, how are you tonight? Oh, and Rhonda, I'm not hearing you. I think I have to ask you to unmute.
Oh, I think I muted myself so you wouldn't hear me yelling at my son.
An excellent way to start.
Right. But thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Any follow-up yelling you need to do before we get going?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, perfect. We've talked before, and I was looking at some information on your bio and stuff, but I really would rather that you gave people your own background. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and a little bit of your history, and then maybe you could go into what in your past drew you to found an organization called Race and Faith.
Okay, sure. Well, I am a Milwaukee native. I graduated from Rufus King High School, class of '98, go Generals. And from there, I went on to college at Fond du Lac at Marion College in Edgewood and Madison. And so during my time in Fond du Lac at Marion, that's when I really got tapped into racism. Growing up, hearing my parents say certain things, and having a vague knowledge of it, all exploded when I got to college because I was immersed. I was immersed into it. And so there in college and on campus, and it happened, various things happen. Racist incidents happened there on campus. Was really my first exchange with racism happening in a violent way, like directly towards my peers, and that threat that something could possibly happen to me, which growing up I never had that, and so that really pushed me into a more activist. It woke up the activist that was already in me. And so racism and fighting racism became from there something that became really important to me. And as many of us, especially those of us, people of color who go to college, you kind of go through your own phases of racial identity development. I definitely got into that space of being just very angry and somewhat maybe militant, and wanting to seclude from all white people and just kind of stick to my own people group. And I think that after I got out of that environment and had a few years growing professionally and connecting with other people, I became more aware of ways that I could actually start having conversations and doing something to get at racism in a larger way. And so I started doing some work with SDC and Deborah Blanks back in like 2007. I met then Martha Berry and another good friend of mine, Lisa Williams. We worked on a task force together where at that particular time, SDC was looking at racism and all its many tentacles. And so we broke it down into sectors, and one sector that I looked at was education. And that is what connected me to working with my current partner in this work, Sharon Chubbuck, because she was an educator. Shout out to Sharon, who just recently retired from Marquette. So she and I did some work at looking at racial inequities and how that plays out in education, which has been part of her academic work. And when I think about how all of these things kind of work together, what was happening along my path that led me to race and faith, it is all these little ways. And so eventually I ended up in 2008, SDC had a Black male joblessness program, and I think it was at one of their poverty summits that the whole focus was on Black male joblessness. And so that really
joblessness,
Black male joblessness, yes.
Okay.
And all the research that had been done around that. And so that really, that my participation in that and that task force and other projects that came out of that really pushed me to keep moving in that direction of anti-racism and using my voice and activism and figuring out how that could work. And what really made that grow was time that I spent actually at the YWCA with Martha Berry. I took the course Unlearning Racism, like so many people have. And if you want to sign up, you still can take their course. That's starting next week. I will be doing that with Martha. You can look at the YWCA site for information on how to register for that course. But I ended up taking that course. And then through my work, I worked for the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America as part of staff for the Lutheran bishop there. I used part of my position and my time there to co-facilitate that course with Martha Berry. And I did that with her for 2 years. And so after facilitating that course with her, and I think about my past experiences at Marian, as well as working in the community and doing that project with SDC, I really thought it was important to start having conversations that put race and faith together. So after being submersed in the faith community and having gone to that time so many different anti-racism trainings and conversations, the way we were talking about racism really didn't make a lot of room for people to investigate or explore their own faith or belief system and how that interplays with racist ideology. And so then Race and Faith was born. In 2014, I got with Sharon and said, hey, I remember we worked on that project before with SDC and education. And I know that's a passion for her, and said, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And we started Race and Faith, and we had our first, I would say, keynote major presentation with the Wisconsin Council of Churches in the winter of 2014. So that's how I got to that space.
That's really interesting.
Condense the story.
Yeah. So as a child growing up in Milwaukee and in your family background and as a young high school and college student, were you very involved in your own faith and your own church? Or did that interest start when you got the job with did you see the Evangelical Lutheran Church?
Yes. No, I was very active in my faith as a teenager. We sang in choir, and I did that with my family quite often. And so I had always had a strong connection to my Christian faith. And so I think the work with the Lutheran Church was just an extension of that. And now doing the work that I do now with Race and Faith, I really believe that this is part of my calling. Yeah. I tell people often, especially being a Black woman, talking about racism, obviously this is not something that is a pleasure. It's not something that is, it can be wearisome, often, but I believe that I've been graced to do this. And so I often encourage and say to people of color, don't feel like you have to take on this role as educator and educate every white person about racism. No. It's a lot of work. It's hard work. It's intense, and it can be draining. And sometimes I pull back and have to sit with myself and my own feelings. And so I believe I just had the grace to be able to do it and to continue these conversations and to be able to provide the services that I do provide.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned something about all your experience with a lot of anti-racist work was very trainings and learning, but there was not a lot of space for faith in there. What made you think of that? I mean, was it just the contrast? What made you think of it, and what were your thoughts on how to merge those two things together?
Yeah, after, working with the church and having people that I worked with in the church at that time, they were coming through the course at the YWCA, and having that experience, which again is a great experience, I still knew that church people, especially those of us engrossed in organized religion, definitely need another push, ways and opportunities that help us to investigate the ways in which we perpetuate racism and racist ideology through our religious practices. And even if you're not, even if you're not a part of any organized religion, we all still have a moral code or belief system that we go by. And to say, well, how is that guiding me and leading me into either fighting against racial oppression, or it might be causing me to oppress other people? But we have to create that space for people to even pause and consider, like, well, how is this information bumping up against what I really believe about myself, about purpose, about others? If you are a person that believes in God or a higher power, how is that informing me? And so I just wanted to create that, give permission for that to happen, and let people know it's okay to think about that and to bring that into the dialogue. Because a lot of times people are afraid to approach faith. They are, just like they say, don't get into politics. Don't talk about, I'm talking about all of them.
Faith. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk about race.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't talk about all of them. we have to.
Right.
If we're going to make the real shifts and changes that we need to make. So it's been a beautiful journey so far. I'm doing this work and watching how it unfolds and how it's been able to be impactful for people who I think maybe it's especially if you've been already on this journey for some time, especially as a white person, if you've been on this journey and you've been reading books and maybe you started into some activism, but you haven't quite connected the dots between racism and your religious ideology, which many people haven't. So we create that space for you to finally connect those dots, which I think can be powerful for people.
So the dots that were connected for you, when you're thinking about your own faith and your strong drive to be an anti-racist educator and advocate, does your faith compel you to that work, or does it support you in that work?
Oh, I think it's both.
Okay.
Being able to start this and see this as part of my own personal ministry and my calling in life, that's the part, that's the compelling part. And when I'm faced with things that I'm frustrated by, just like having a pandemic and trying to run a business. And so interestingly enough, I have been doing Race and Faith alongside having another job. And so Race and Faith was always part-time. And so last year I decided to just say, I'm going to go into this full force. I was working for Interfaith, and then up until January 2020. And after that, I just said, I'm going to just bet on me. I'm 40 now. I'm going to put all my energy into what I feel is important for me to do. And I was planning a educational tour at that time to go to Alabama. We're going to do Birmingham, Selma, and Montgomery. Had it all worked out. I'm big on intergenerational. I believe it's really important that as we talk about racism, we talk about it across the generations. And so this was an intergenerational tour. We had a campus group of young adults from UWM, along with other folks throughout the community who signed up, about 40 people for this experience together, and COVID hit. And then I was like, oh, Lord. Because I was really hoping that to be a launching point for my business. I was like, oh. So in those moments, that's when my faith bolsters me.
Right.
As any person of faith, I really think, it's in those moments of uncertainty and like, what did I get myself into? That faith bolsters you and keep you going forward into that thing that you've been called to. So yeah.
So give us just a little sneak preview. Is that tour pending? Is that, will you
No,
bring that back, or is that an
no,
idea that has passed its time for you?
that was so much work. I put so much work into that.
I can imagine.
I shelved it. I mean, I've been talking with I have a cousin that has a travel business, and so I've been talking to him a little bit. So it's still on the shelf. I didn't completely throw it in the garbage. It's still on the shelf for right now.
Okay. We'll just wait to hear more about that.
Yeah, but really race and faith for me, and as people experience it, race and faith is our mission to be interfaith, an interfaith organization. So a lot of times when people hear that, I think they just maybe think Christian or something like that, or they may think that I'm trying to push a religious ideology on it. And it's totally not that. It is to make space for faith to be a part of this conversation on racism. And so I consider race and faith to be an interfaith organization that is helping folks to look at the ways in which their religious beliefs or ideologies either help people to be liberated from racial oppression or add to that. And so with that, race and faith, we provide services of education. We provide consulting services and coaching services. And we're starting this work and doing so much of this work. Up until last year, a lot of my work was geared towards educating white people. And it wasn't some people of color that may have been in the class here and there were. But most of the content was like, how do I help white people understand racism, and how they are playing a part in this. So even if you look at my website, which is raceandfaith.org, you will see all the testimonials that I have are from white people. And sometimes people ask me, like, where are all these white people? I'm like, well, white people are the ones, who will contract me and call me for services and pay for me to talk to them about racism. And secondly, a lot of people of color really aren't thinking like, hey, let me get this consultant over here to help me not be racist, because really we're dealing with white people who are the ones that continue to perpetuate the racism in our country. And so I did completely shift what I did. I added on to my thinking about things and started with the pandemic last year, seeing how people of color yet again were so disproportionately impacted by COVID that I felt compelled to do something. So I created the Sinkofa Project.
So the Sinkofa Project became a pet project for appropriate to the pandemic that allowed you to have more interactions with other Black people as other people of color, as opposed to just strictly serving a white audience.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And it really, and in that, when I created that Sinkofa Project, I created a booklet to go along with it that addresses racial trauma, grief, and looking at the ways that COVID has really impacted all of us that are people of the global majority. And so really looking at some of the incidents that started happening with those within the Asian community. I did some videos and talks with some of my friends, one who's Korean, one who's Hmong, and really talking about how has this been looking in your community and shaping out, and just the pain from that. So I feel like this project and creating those Sinkofa boxes, which I call a hug in a box, because we couldn't really touch each other. But this is my way of saying to people of color, I see you. I know this is a hard time. Racism is tough. We got to grieve it. We got to find ways to take care of ourselves in the midst of it. And we're going to keep moving forward. And so that was a good shift for me I should say a good addition for me, another way for me to see that in this work, it is so important for racial healing. Well, my racial healing, my healing from the impact and trauma of racism, and encouraging that for other people of color, like, hey, this is tough. This showing up in our lives in so many different ways. We need to reckon with that, and we need to find ways to have joy together. And so even from that, this year, I put forth a Black Joy Retreat, which has just been, that was the culmination of all my happiness and hard work.
Nice.
I think from the pandemic of doing that, first starting off with the Sinkofa boxes and the Sinkofa Project, and adding on the Black Joy Retreat as an extension of that Sinkofa Project, saying, and Sinkofa is a West African word that means go back and fetch it. This is
I was
me.
just going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yes, this is me going back and grabbing my peoples, grabbing those us of the global majority and saying, hey, I love you. I see you. I care for you. Care for yourself. Racism is tough. We have to reckon with it, but it doesn't have to rob us and steal that which we can find joy in. So let's do that together. And so the Black Joy Retreat was just, it was all of my expectations and more. And it was so wonderful to be in this sacred space and have other attendees there feel that release, you know, and just like, you knew when we were there, we knew that's what we collectively needed. Right. Was that time to just be together and be in joy. So yeah, that's the
same. When people signed up for that event, are most of the people that you're attracting to your programs or reaching out to in your programs, are most of them strong in their churches or strong in a spiritual way? Are they looking for, one thing you said that I'd love to kind of bring into this conversation, when we talked earlier, you were talking about the idea of bringing your whole self into the conversation of racism and into the consideration of racism, as opposed to just your thinking self or your educational self or your, I don't know, maybe left brain self. Yeah, go ahead.
So to answer the first part of the question, I think people who do connect to my work have some type of spiritual connection. They may or may not belong to any particular organized religious group, but they have some type of a spiritual awareness, and a openness to do some spirit work, which I think in this, especially for people of color, when you have to deal with racism in the ways that we have to deal with it, spirit work is so important. So I think, yes, some people definitely have already some leanings in that direction when they work with us. And we do work with a lot of churches. We've worked with a lot of churches. We work with some nonprofits. We really want to work with schools, because that's the perfect marrying between my work and Sharon's work as an educator for so long. And so just being able to work, especially with religious schools and those systems. That piece, you have to have Sharon on for that talk. She does an amazing job. She's writing a book right now. But so, yeah, I think for us in our work, it's definitely, it's based in scripture. I am Christian. And so what my work and what we do and how we see people and what we invite people to is based in scripture. I was gonna share my screen, but then I might not be sharing my screen. What'd you say?
Do you see that? You see where to do it? You see how to, the little spot to do it from?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. So yeah, our work is based in this text. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind and all your strength. When we say that, if in this is Jesus talking to the disciples, and we say that, hey, this is Jesus' way of telling the disciples that when you love the Lord, you need to love the Lord with all of who you are. And we say we're going to bring that same approach into having these conversations about racism. That with all of who we are, we need to attack this issue of racism and white supremacy. And so often in this work, we find that people are really focused on, like, if we can just educate people, then they will stop being racist. I'm like, it's a lot of smart people who are very racist.
Right.
They are not racist because of lack of education. Granted, there are things that people can get to know, and sure, that will turn them, but by and large, it's not just because people don't know certain things that they're racist. And so we have various entry points into various modalities and the ways that we learn. And we say that people have various ways too, as they enter these type of conversations, different ways of entering to these conversations. They have different entry points into how they process information about race. And so we look at that and we say, here's, we have our heart, and that's where we really talk about our emotions, our soul. We put that where is either your, it could be your religious dogma that guides you, or whatever ethics you may have. But it nonetheless, at that soul, that's your moral seat, your judging seat. And with our mind, that's where we have the questions, that's our thoughts. And then the strength, we look at that in two ways. It's one, how are we feeling this conversation in our body? Where's this showing up? And then what is it making us want to do? And you take all of that, and then that is a whole person. And so I'll give this example. Let's say you're at a restaurant and a fight breaks out at the restaurant. You're there with your family and a couple of people just get into it. What are you going to do? How are you going to respond? Are you going to be that person that might be the heart person? You may start feeling anxious. You may could get afraid. You may become scared. You may have first emotional response seeing this fight break out. You may even have some compassion for the folks in the fight. A person who approaches this with their mind may just start asking questions right away. Who started the fight? Where is the manager? How long have those people been here? Yeah, and whatever other questions they'll be asking. They'll probably get into trying to investigative mode. A person who comes at it from that soul space may actually start making a moral judgment about that. Like, who raised those people? This is a family place. Why are they acting like that? A person who might engage it from the space of the action and dealing with their body, they may notice sweaty palms. They may want to actually be like my good friend Steve Derby. He's a total action person all the time. He's the first person with the picket sign. That's his first go-to response. But you may get up, if you're the action person, you may get up and run. You may actually think you can get in there and break up the fight. Or you might get up and go get the manager. And so we just ask people to think about who are you? How do you enter into situations? Where did you first go when you heard this story? Where did you first go?
Right. And so you're saying that basically everybody has all four of these.
I'm asking you to answer the question. Where did you first go when you heard the story? Did you go to your mind? Did you go to your heart? Did you go to where did you first go?
I think I would probably fall with your friend. I think my first action would be to stand up and be involved, like be in that space, which is not always the smartest thing, but that would be, but I tend to go there first. But I'm noticing that, like, I also could tell you that how I was feeling emotionally, or if I was judging people, and so everyone has all of these, but you're saying that a lot of times you can look at yourself in a situation and see, where do I lead with? What are my what's showing up the most and what's showing up most quietly, so that you can bring up the other parts and examine those parts of yourself as well.
Exactly. And if you're watching this, where are you? Are you a heart person? Are you a mind person? Are you that take action person? Or are you that person? You're sitting there, you're at the moral seat, you're at the judgment seat of things. Where would you chart yourself? What would you say you're coming into the situation? That'll be interesting to read and see from folks. So post it on the Facebook thread. I want to know how do you see yourself?
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, you're right. We tell people to take note, understand where you gravitate, what's your initial entry point. And then we ask you to really lean in through something we call a quadrant temperature check. When we're working with people, we ask them to share. First, we're going to share what's most alive for you right now, what your heart, your soul, which one is popping for you. Then we ask people, okay, now let's lean in. If you're a heart person, challenge yourself and tap your mind into this. Pay attention to what's happening in your mind. If you're a mind person, pay attention to what's happening in your body right now. What are you thinking you should do? What is this calling you to do? If you're a heart person, where is this showing up for you? Or if you're an action person, maybe pause and think, okay, how is this impacting my belief system? Where is this information butting up? How is it butting up against what it is that I believe? And so it's really, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask, so really when you're asking people to do this quadrant temperature check, you're really asking them to kind of examine, like, your reactions are here. What does that tell you about your belief system? What does that tell you about, you know, how you think, how you act, and how you feel, and your whole framework as a person?
Right.
You can, it's sort of self-reflective in the idea of putting yourself into a situation, or talking about something and then saying, what do I bring to this? What's coming from the outside and what's coming from the inside?
Right. And if you are one of those, what I hear so often, and I'm sure other educators, especially anti-racist educators here, people they want to jump to action really quickly. That's usually end up being like the main mode. They go from mind, like, oh, let me consume all this information. Now I got to go do something. And I understand that, but we done missed a couple steps along the way from just getting this information and consuming it, and now just saying, okay, now I'm ready to go and just be this anti-racist warrior. So I want people, especially I challenge white people, to sit with this for a minute, sit with what you just heard and received, and really process that emotionally. Really process what does this mean for you? What does it bring up for you? How does it make you locate yourself as a white person in the grand scheme of things? And how have you seen the ways in which you have perpetrated racism and continue to do so? Which sometimes I think that in an effort to maybe assuage guilt, white people jump really quickly, like, let me go hurry up and do all these things, and end up being very hurtful, because you really haven't fully processed in the ways that you need to, really bringing your complete person to this. So now this action is just an object of a thing to be conquered. So yeah, that's our framework and our process, and what we invite people into as they participate in our educational series. We often try to make space and time for people to reflect and to assess themselves. Even with the Sinkofa Project, recently I wrote a grief ritual based in West African practice, and I wrote one for people of color, and I wrote one for white people. And so now with the Sinkofa Project, in addition to the boxes that I do have and give away to people of color, I do have a box and space that I have set up for white people as well, that journey them through actually grief and that real heart space and that heart work that has to be done, which I think really connects. I'm hoping that it really does connect white people to their own humanity and the ways in which they are part of this system. It's like, not racism is not outside of you. You're part of it too. And so I think it's that sitting. Yeah.
So out of curiosity, I mean, the Sinkofa was like a leave nobody behind, caring for the people who are being injured. But you made space in there. Was there like, how can I get involved in Sinkofa requests?
No. I have,
I had an active, like, I want to also make it turn it a little bit, because it's a different relationship to the concept.
Yeah,
for a white person to.
I wrote the grief rituals. I have wrote that already. And I thought that the project was a good way, because the word means go back and fetch. So this is a way for I think for white people, go back and fetch your humanity, because racism, white supremacy strips you of being able to deeply connect to your own humanity and your place and connection with others. So you need to go back and get that.
Right. So give me an example for our viewers and for myself and everybody. like when I received your Sankofa box and was invited to sit in my own
Yeah.
reflections on this, what kind of questions are you posing to me? What am I looking at that I'm going to be reacting to?
Yeah.
What is that? What does that physically look like, or what does that read like?
I think the number one thing is taking you out of here.
Okay.
Is taking you from there to your heart. And I think, and I don't have it. I don't have the grief ritual right in front of me at this moment,
Okay.
but so I can't tell you each. It's set up in stations. So you have 3 stations, and you complete each station.
So there's kind of a task that's presented, like a challenge or a task, like consider this and sit in that thought.
No, I'll send it to you, and you will have to experience it.
Okay.
You will just have to experience it, because it's not that. It's not that. I believe it really is. It is like a spiritual experience that you're being guided through. It's grief in itself is really hard for our culture, our United States culture, to deal with. We don't manage grief well. It's something we just want to bypass and get through and work our way through. This ritual says, no, you have to grieve. You have to stop, pause, and feel all the feels.
So you use the word.
It's not so much an intellectual exercise. Some of that is there, but it really more is a spiritual heart space experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you draw the boundaries for me? I would imagine that there's, grief is a word that you're using a lot. And then for your white clients, I would imagine guilt is a word that comes up a lot as well. And how do those intersect with each other?
I think guilt and shame comes up a lot for white people. There's a lot of that guilt and shame about racism, especially as white people are learning the ways, the history of this country, and what has really happened. And then even when we get into the religious space and talking when I'm working with those in the Christian tradition, and really being able to point out white supremacy within Christianity, that's a whole nother whoa, for people, that I think that makes, again, people feel some guilt, overwhelmed, I don't know what to do, like those kinds of responses.
Right.
And the shame.
Right.
And I think that makes sense. It's okay. I just say don't live it.
Right. So the grief is mourning what you're losing, and mourning or being your awareness of what's real, what reality is, and working through.
No, the grief part is how I begin to tie in grief to this work. One, we as people of color, we have a lot of things. Racism has been a part of our life and has done a lot of things, taken away a lot of things from us. That loss that I think we need to pay attention to and to deeply mourn. And then I think for white people, white supremacy has ripped white people of their humanity. A lot of white people can't see that though. Don't think that that's what it is. And so I think that that's the grief that we have to sit there like, what has white supremacy done to me that I haven't recognized?
Right.
So it is going through that process, that loss of humanity, your own humanity. I think mourning and grieving that, and finding ways to put yourself back together. And really, I think then you come, especially as a white person, you can come back to this work in a more authentic way, because now you've really done some deep diving, which is not, then now you don't need to objectify me. I don't need to be the person. You don't need to do all these projects to fix me as the person of color. You don't have to fix me. You done work on fixing yourself. You know?
Right.
Because it's really, I'm not the problem.
Exactly. So tell me, you must run up against a lot of times where, like, especially when you're talking to people who are solid in their faith, especially if it's a church-based faith, where that's a faith that gives them comfort and strength and builds a lot of their belief structure. but then suddenly they're faced with the reality that within that same structure, there's a lot of racism built in. So there's that question. And for me, that also brings up the irony that like two different people can look at the same scripture and one can come up with a very racist conclusion from that, and one can come up with an extremely anti-racist conclusion from that. How do you jump into conversations like that and getting people to look at the I don't know, the dichotomies there that just naturally exist, and where to fall and evaluate those or feel those?
Well, when we're doing our work, we're not necessarily teaching people how to read scripture. Not necessarily. We're going through and sharing, and for example, in most Christian churches here in the United States, and in most of, I would say, global experience with Christianity, Jesus has been portrayed as a white person. Well, that's white supremacy. So we talk about it in that. Here is something. So then what are the visuals that you have hanging around your church, and are they accurate? And if they're not, well, why is that? Right. So then we help people understand this is the ways in which white supremacy shows up through your Sunday school curriculum, through whatever VBS you may be doing, this way of always positioning whiteness next to this deity. So that's sending out a message. So that's more of the ways that we do talk about and help people understand the ways white supremacy comes up into, and it has been permeated throughout Christianity globally. Then we get into scenarios and get a little bit more specific to help people see ways that they may be perpetuating racist ideology in their own congregations. We do have a course called Living Out Liberation, where we use liberation theology, which is a certain way, a certain theological view that helps people to read scripture through that lens. And so we do talk about that and prescribe that as a way to begin to help Christians start to see scripture in a different way and position themselves differently as it pertains to what they maybe read in text, and how they see themselves and what they should be doing in the world. Because a lot of Christians, especially white Christians, have positioned themselves with a savior space, and they use scripture to put them there. But we said, like, let's go back through that and look at scriptures from the bottom up. So we're looking at it from the least of these perspectives, not from the powerful. And so if we're going to make change, we have to go like, who's most harmed or impacted by this? So that would be, I'm not trying to get too theological and technical here.
Interesting.
But that would be how we go about doing that. And we just use different examples. It's a lot of theologians that have talked about white supremacy and the ways whiteness have shown up and been used throughout Christianity and used to try to get people to convert or be more like white people. So we just help people to see that.
I see. We had somebody ask earlier what you were talking about, like working with people of different faiths and and you used to work for interfaith. And so in the idea of having interfaith experiences where people can come together in your programs or in their own discussions with people that are of the same faith and people of multiple faiths, different backgrounds, what effect has that had on you? Where have you seen, have you had any profound experiences in interfaith experiences, or do you bring something new to your own faith by having interfaith experiences?
Yeah, for sure. Interfaith has been just a wonderful gift for me as a Christian. meeting so many different people of various cultural and religious backgrounds and beliefs, people who really take their beliefs and their faith seriously. Meeting those people and having these deeper conversations about with various topics, and how they see it helps me to better shape how I see the world and how I see the world as a Christian. And so that has just been a beautiful gift. I'm doing some work right now with Marquette, and they've been having interfaith dialogues between Christian and Muslims, and we have the next series next week on the 23rd, where it's moderated by Pardeep Kalika, who's the director of Interfaith, who's also a Sikh. He's moderating conversations between us Christians and Muslims, and we're talking about people of our faith community, different figures in our that's familiar to both our faith traditions, and how each faith tradition see this particular person, and how that person has in our traditions served as a bridge for us to have communications, but also being realistic about some barriers with that. And I love that, because interfaith work is a really good way at getting at anti-racism as well. There's a lot, especially in our country with so much Christian nationalism. We just got past 9/11, right? And we know everything, all the fallout that came from there. So that interfaith work really pushes us to get beyond our own comforts and the lines that we draw that says, no, I'm the right person. I'm right, you're wrong.
Right.
It calls us to find that commonality. What's common between us? And it's really saying it's the humanity, So yeah, it's been a great experience for me.
In the arc of those conversations, do you see yourself or people around you like leaning hard into their own faith? I mean, do they become defensive or protective of it, or more like rejecting of what they're hearing? And is there an easing into that? Like, I understand where the overlap is, or are those conversations able to happen in ways that everyone's eyes just kind of get slowly opened and opened and opened?
And you won't have overlap with every religious group you meet, right? So we had engagement with people who are Hindus. Hindus are polytheistic. When we got to Christian, Jews, Muslims, that's monotheistic. So you have these different ways people see. And I think, and then of course, we have people who are atheists, and or agnostic, and I don't think that's where we didn't zero in on that. If you come to interfaith, you're not coming to interfaith thinking you're going to convert anyone or make anyone start practicing what you practice. That's not the goal of interfaith. And so I don't think, in my experiences there, I didn't run into that. I didn't run into people drawing hard lines and becoming upset or angry that I don't see God or think about God in the ways that they think about God. It's more of a sharing. Well, okay, I hear your thoughts and how you view this. Let me tell you how I see it from my perspective. This is how we see it. And so then it builds a respect. I think it builds a real respect, especially again, when you're with people, this is what they practice, this is their way of life. Mm-hmm. Whole culture built around it.
So going forward into the world, do you have a hope for the role that the church might play in fostering anti-racist understanding and fostering more inclusion and more belonging in our communities?
For sure. Well, first I want to say, I'm really hoping that interfaith communities in general begin to really foster this anti-racist. And the interfaith community is very poised to do that. I've already shown an example of how people can come together and be as various ideology on things.
Right.
And so I'm really hoping that all of our religious communities start to really take on this issue of racism. And it's within a lot of people's sacred texts on how we should treat one another, how we should subdue one another. So the blueprint is there for a lot of folks already.
Right.
And
Right.
within Christianity, I certainly hope it's a lot of ways today that in our country we need strong Christian voices to really begin to step up and stand out against a lot of the other Christian voices that are promoting a gospel that I don't think is central to the gospel message of Jesus Christ. And so I think it is room, and I know for certain there are Christian organizations that really are taking this serious and doing what they can to combat racism. And I just look forward to seeing some more of it. It's so many books that's been out now about white supremacy and Christianity, a lot of people tackling that subject and the ways that shows up in our country specifically, that I think that if we really want to pay attention to it, the material is there and opportunity is there to really get into those deeper, harder conversations. So yeah.
Do you like when you're out in the world and you run across somebody who is just racist to some degree? Is somebody who's blatantly racist. If you are not compelled to just move away out of that space, does this reflection of yourself as a whole person and your different quadrants, does that help you converse with that person and find some kind of common ground and perhaps make some kind of movement? Or that's not something that's going to be helpful in hitting somebody who's not thinking like that?
No.
Okay.
No, if someone's in that space, I'm going to go straight to that action place and take care of myself and move.
Gotcha.
I'm not going to put myself in a place of enduring violence.
Right.
So, yeah. So no, right. I won't try to intervene in that, just this blatantly racist space in that way against me. You can start thinking strategically. It all depends on how these things manifest, whether it's at work or church, whatever. For me, when I was in college, it happened a lot. So you begin to think strategically, how do I go about doing these things, but not just taking necessarily head on that person one-on-one. I don't think that would end too well.
And that might be more the work of an ally. I think of people who talk all the time about like Thanksgiving's not the same anymore because we've got, uncle and aunt so-and-so and those kids over here who feel this way and this group of people who feel very much this way. And none of these topics can come up. Otherwise we have we can't be together. And so how do you bridge those, as somebody who's going to come up against racist sentiments in your path to trying to be more anti-racist within your own family? Seems more like a white person's problem.
Oh yeah, I always tell white people, go get your cousins.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, like, when people try like, oh, I don't know, oh, it's not that bad. Well, just think, well, all the people you don't want to talk to, then it's just that bad.
Just that bad. Right.
But yeah, for us, I mean, Race and Faith, we do provide educational opportunities that people can plug into. Before we leave, I want to share a couple of them.
Yeah, actually, I was going to have you talk. We're running out of time way too quickly, but I know you've got an event coming up on the 13th. Do you want to include that in your talk too?
Oh yeah. So our upcoming events, we do educational series, and so the first educational series that I have starting this fall starts September 29th, and I'm co-leading it with the Reverend Carrie Parker of Wisconsin Council of Churches. And this series is called Becoming an Anti-Racist Church. And we'll meet Wednesday nights from 6:30 to 8:30. People can message me, which my email will be put out there, or send me a message on Facebook. You can contact us right through Race and Faith or raceandfaith.org. And then I have a second series that'll be starting up October 28th, which is with Emerald Mills of Diverse Dining. And we are going to address diversity with our topic being living authentically into diversity. So that should be those two opportunities for folks who really want to dig into that especially Christian space, becoming an anti-racist church. Reverend Parker and I are going to just do a deep dive. And so will Emerald Mills and I, but we're going to be talking about living authentically into diversity. And the program that you mentioned that's coming in November will happen at Underwood Baptist Church. And it also shares the same title, Living Authentically into Diversity. We're working as myself, Race and Faith, Diverse Dining, and Underwood Baptist Church to put on this event where we really will spend some time at that event unpacking what it means to be an actor, ally, or an accomplice in doing anti-racist work. And so we want to help people go a little deeper and do again some of that self-evaluating. Where do you find yourself, and how does this really feed into? We have so much right with diversity culture, with DEI work and DI work. People are always talking about diversity, but it's not easy to really get into. And I always say you can't really do diversity if you're not going to talk about racism. So we putting that right at the center.
Very good. Are all of these in-person events or are they virtual?
They're online. No, the only in-person event, well, thank you for mentioning that. The class that I'm starting with Reverend Carey on the 29th is online. And the class that I start on October 28th with Emerald Mills is also online. I just think that's just easier given what's happening today.
I think so too. Yeah,
the event in November, which we'll send you flyers and more information about that one is actually in person.
Okay.
So that is an in-person event, and it's a one-day conference.
And the audience, if you're interested in the topic, the class is for you. So, and like for the creating an anti-racist church, is that strictly for like people who are leaders in their church or people who lead churches, or is that for people who are involved with their church at any level?
Yeah, anybody who's involved at their church at any level, and they're more curious in unpacking issues of racism and Christianity, and really want to see what can they do and think through how they can take their church, push their church into being more anti-racist. And it's the same thing with living authentically into diversity. That's for anybody, especially if you've been in a diversity space for a while and you feel like you've been bumping your head up against a couple of things. We really want to help people take it up to the next level.
Keep going to the next step. Yeah, that's interesting.
And encouraging. I think this work is, you have to encourage each other. So doing these types of classes and coming to these trainings or listening to this talk and other talks, those kinds of things, hopefully people are finding nuggets and words of encouragement, ways that they feel like, okay, maybe I slipped here, maybe I made a mistake there, but I can keep moving forward, because that's what we all have to do, keep moving forward.
So all of these trainings are on your Race and Faith website?
They're not, but people can email me about them and contact.
Okay, tell us your email address one more time so everyone hears it.
It's Rhonda, RHONDA, at raceandfaith.org. People can also find me on Facebook.
Okay.
And contact
me. Has a Facebook page.
We do have a Facebook page, and we have a book club. Right now we're reading the book A Critical Race Theory and Introduction, the 3rd edition of that book. And it's really just been a powerful read as I've been going through that. Just a consistent reminder of how much we have to keep challenging ourselves and asking ourselves the tough questions.
Right.
So
can people join that on your Facebook group?
Yeah, the Facebook group. It is a Facebook group.
Okay.
And it is it's the Race and Faith book club.
Okay, so they request to join, and then you let them in the group, and then they find out about what you're reading.
Yes, I can quick flash my information up on the screen. I don't know
Flash away. Yeah,
if that matters or not.
I love that. Yeah, it'll be always good.
Right. Uh-oh. I'm always thinking I can just do something real quick.
It worked pretty well before.
I know. Here we go. My little oops, not that. My little cartoon.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah, so
wonderful.
you can, yeah,
Did you
can
do it
email
yourself or did somebody do that for you?
Somebody do it on Fiverr.
Nice.
So yeah, you can easily join Race and Faith book club right on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, we're chapter 4 of that book. It's a good book. Even if you don't, we do recaps, and so if you want to just go back and watch the videos and see how we answer some of those questions, I think that's great too.
So you're reading
Especially
through it
since
and
so much-
blessing it
it's
as
so
you
much
go.
controversy. Yes, it's so much
Excellent.
controversy around it. So yeah, that's usually how our book clubs work. We do it. We read it together week after week, chapter after chapter. It's
Very
not
nice.
a summation of the book
Yeah.
all at one time. We journey together.
Yeah, critical race theory is something that everyone should have a basic understanding of what that is, because we're only going to hear more about it.
Yeah.
To understand what it is and what it isn't. Well, this is anything else? Our hour has passed, which is just amazing to me. Is there anything else, Rhonda, you want to bring up before we call it a night?
Oh, just like us and follow us on Facebook. Check out our website. If you feel compelled by the Sinkofa Project, you can go to our website and you can donate there.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you. I'd like all of my viewers to help join me in thanking Rhonda Hill from Race and Faith. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us tonight and sharing your great information and experiences and all your insights. It was really a lovely discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have to say thank you also to our Facebook audience for their time and interest. We will follow up with any comments that were left that we didn't get to. I think we covered almost everything. And as always, another thank you to our generous friends at Bostic who make the entire Tosa Talk series possible. We really appreciate that. Everyone will find a recording of tonight's presentation and all the Tosa Talk presentations on the Tosa Together YouTube channel, as well as on our Facebook page. And please join us again next Wednesday. It's September 22nd. We'll be talking with someone from Bethesda about their adult housing project that is coming into Wauwatosa, that is housing developmentally disabled adults in a community setting, which is lovely. In the meantime, feel free to reach out to Tosa Together anytime through this Facebook page or through the website, or email us directly at tosatogether@gmail.com. We will answer you. This is Robin Luther with Tosa Together, and it's been my real pleasure to be here with Rhonda Hill tonight, as well as with everybody watching. Thanks so much, Rhonda, and thanks to everyone for being part of Tosa Talks and our mutual effort to build a diverse, thriving community. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.